Good evening, everybody. So, I don't normally talk about this stuff, but I am tonight because I was really bothered by all the social media stuff. And I usually don't do the news and social media nonsense, but tonight it got to me a little bit. So, I think about a story from when I was younger. I was always getting whipped. My brother was actually the worst of me and him. He was my one and only sibling, and he was actually a worse kid than I was. My mom would disagree, but anyways, I was the only one that got spanked on a regular basis, and it was always because I couldn't just not run my mouth. Like sometimes I should have been quiet, and I couldn't do it. And I remember my brother saying, if you would have just been quiet, you would have been fine, but you always had to talk. And here I am at 41, and I still feel the need to run my mouth sometimes about things that I see. And so I suppose it'll only get worse as I age. But anyways, I'm getting on here tonight because, we all know the tragedies that happened today with Colorado and with Charlie Kirk. I don't care about your politics, and honestly, I'm very middle ground. I actually wanted to write a book called The Common Sense Party. I'm very middle on a lot of things and whatever makes sense kind of person. So I don't really get involved in any political things. But I had actually seen Charlie Kirk speak about 6 months ago at a business conference, believe it or not. It was in Las Vegas. So I'd actually seen him speak. I went back to my notes from that conference from 6 months ago. It was back in March. And I was reading through some of the highlights I put. And again, this was a business conference. So some of the highlights I just wanted to share with you that he was talking about. He was talking about if you solve a problem, that's what entrepreneurs do. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So if you solve a problem well enough, you have a market differential. And I really like that. He also talked about as far as getting influence, if you're doing social media, that kind of thing. Your first 10,000 is the hardest followers to get, and after that it kind of flows. So that was kind of encouraging. He said, understand what your audience is processing, anticipate what they're going to want, and follow the skills that you are good at. And he said, sometimes it's not bad to have to struggle for money and to get where you want for years because it can work to your benefit and it can make you more gritty. And then something I learned about was this book called Anti-Fragile and the difference between being anti-fragile and strong. I've always considered myself a pretty strong person, but strength means survives and endures, but it doesn't change due to the different encounters or hardships you might run into. Whereas anti-fragile means you actually get better with those challenges. Where in strength you don't change, anti-fragile you actually get better with the resistance. And I think about that as a lifter, muscles, right? What do? We tear it down and it builds up. And the more we do, the bigger it grows, right? So it's kind of like that anti-fragile versus strong. Anti-fragile, we're actually growing with the resistance. So that was super interesting. And he said, nothing will ever replace grassroots and connections and relationships, especially considering our digital world. I totally agree with that. And finally, and a point that I just wholeheartedly agree with, is God rewards our creation when we are fruitful and we work, when we're productive and we sow. Completely agree with that. So I was reading back through that, and then I was just thinking about things I was seeing from both sides of the fence and some of the crazy, and I was like, man. And it brought me to my karate. We have a mantra, Chuck Norris, he has these 12 things that we say in our Chuck Norris system. And number 10, I will maintain an attitude of open-mindedness to another person's point of view while still holding fast to that I know to be true and honest. I think we have lost somehow in today's world this ability to strongly disagree and be on opposite sides, and maybe not even have a resolution, but still be able to walk out, embrace one another, and be friends. Grow in the process and learn. Because to be honest with you, I have no desire to be around people exactly like me, that think like me, look like me, speak like me, because I can't grow. I can't learn something different. I want to be challenged in ways. I want people around me that I don't necessarily agree with in certain things. That's how we grow and develop, right? You don't want everybody to be the same. So we can have that and still leave on goodwill and good terms. And I guess I want to say, regardless of what your politics, your race, your religion, your culture, your beliefs, Whether you're tall or midget size, you're round or skinny, I don't care. I can still love you. Even if you don't like chocolate and sweets, I don't know what's wrong with you people, but even if you don't, I can still love you. We can still disagree, and we can still love one another. So I guess I just want people to kind of think, before we go all keyboard warrior and say these things that are negative and hateful and honestly downright evil in some ways, ask yourself, are your actions centered in love? Because what's coming out and what you're typing and what you're speaking, that's coming from your heart. So if love isn't at the center of it and it's not the root, it might be better to simply be quiet and to reflect on the fact of why you feel that way, why you're talking that way. Maybe that's something you need to work on, because honestly, regardless of who you follow in politics, athletics, or wherever you are, we're all responsible for our own behavior. What we speak, our actions, we're responsible for that. So maybe it's a good thing to take a pause if it's not so nice and just reflect on that for a minute. Is it really benefiting anybody? Is it coming from a place of love and purity? Because if it's not, maybe it's best to leave that unsaid, regardless, again, of where you stand on any of these issues. And I'm not talking about like any one set of people in particular. You know, taking whole groups and making accusations and things, it's just crazy to me. I don't know how we got to this kind of place, and it's concerning. So as I kind of wrap this up, I just want to say, you know, Lincoln, a house divided, it cannot stand. So if you'll allow me, I'd like to kind of just say a little blessing that I've been thinking tonight and praying tonight over you guys and people and our USA in general. But seek peace and understanding in all that you do. May you find harmony and not discourse. Find friendships, not enemies. Build bridges, don't burn them. Find unity, not division. Hope, not fear. And above all, have love for yourselves and love for one another, because that's what we're here to do. Love you guys. Have a great night.